A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I want A plus English because it's so much fun. English education for you and everyone, so come along. Learn some grammar, learn a phrase, learn something new every day. Learn the A plus way. Hey, it's time to start the show. Are you ready? Good, 'cause here we go. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I want A plus English.
Hi everybody, welcome back to A+ English. We are on day 2 of our culture shock article about tipping. I am Kat.
I'm Mike.
And we are gonna talk a little bit about day 1. They were doing some tipping in a restaurant, right?
That's right. Simon and Lucia, a couple of friends, were out at a restaurant and they were figuring out that in Taiwan, people tip, or actually don't tip, in a very different way from North America,
right.
Where they might be from. Tipping, of course, is that extra money you give, often in a restaurant, because you're very happy with how the waiter or waitress treated you. Now, in North America, it's around 15%.
Yeah, 15 to 20.
But you have to add that money yourself. You have to do the math yourself.
Yeah.
Here, they don't really do it. Sometimes they do add the money, but it's different, right?
Yeah, so they often add a 10% service charge. So it's less money, but it's still a service charge, and you have to pay it here.
Yep.
And the service charge doesn't go to the server, unfortunately. It is not a tip because it goes to the boss or the restaurant manager, I suppose.
And they might share that out with a lot of people in the restaurant.
Yeah,
maybe
hopefully.
not just the server. So it's a little bit different. But again, the idea is they're doing this extra work for you, so you're paying a little bit more because they treat you so well.
Right, but restaurants are not the only place that you tip, of course. So I think we're going to learn a little bit more about different places or different ways that people might tip in countries where it's very common. So why don't we go find out?
Sounds good.
Culture shock!
To tip or not to tip?
Simon and Lucia are leaving the restaurant. It starts raining heavily.
Oh no, it's raining.
Lucia looks around.
Let's take a taxi home. There's one there.
Good idea.
They get into a taxi.
In the UK, we tip cab drivers as well.
I did that in Canada too.
A few times, I didn't have enough cash to tip my driver.
Simon remembers being in a taxi and not having enough money. The taxi driver looks a little angry.
Sorry, mate. I don't have enough for a tip.
The memory ends.
How embarrassing.
Tell me about it.
When I was in Canada, I really hated tipping at first. I always forgot, and it was hard to work out the right amount. Then, I started paying with my card. The card machines calculate the tip for you.
I'll be honest, I don't miss tipping.
Word power!
Driver. Driver. Daniel works for Taipei City as a bus driver. Daniel works for Taipei City as a bus driver. Amount. Amount. Ned can only spend a small amount of money on lunch today. Ned can only spend a small amount of money on lunch today. Start. Start. Bob started learning Chinese in high school. Bob started learning Chinese in high school. Honest. Honest. Lucy is an honest person. She never lies. Lucy is an honest person. She never lies.
认识字汇
Cab. Embarrassing. Calculate.
Okay, starting off today, we have Simon and Lucia who have just left the restaurant and it starts raining heavily, a lot.
Oh no, there's
Oh boy.
heavy rain coming down. That's no good.
So hopefully they have their umbrellas.
I don't think they're going to tip the rain, are they?
I don't think so. How
No.
would you give money to the rain?
Yeah, that wouldn't make sense. Plus, why would you? All right, so what does Simon think of this whole situation?
I think he says the same thing that you or I would say. Oh no, it's raining.
That's right. You would
Yeah.
definitely say that if it's raining really heavily. Maybe you don't have your umbrella. Maybe you're wearing your brand new shoes and you don't want them to get wet. But anyways, he's not happy about this. That explains the oh no, and he says, it's raining in an excited way, so it gives us the idea this is a lot of rain. So they got a bit of a problem. Well, we see next that Lucia is looking around. So she's kind of looking in the area, moving her head around, maybe turning around. She's trying to find or see something, apparently. And here's her idea. She says, let's take a taxi home. There you go. That's not a bad idea. If you have a bit of extra money and it's a rainy day, a taxi will certainly save you time, save you from getting wet. But good luck finding one because lots of people take taxis
That's
on
right.
a rainy day. So that's also why she kind of shouts or sounds excited when she says, there's one there. It is kind of lucky if
Yeah.
you're downtown on a Friday night, say, on a rainy night to find a taxi. So there's one there. They're in luck. They can find a taxi and they don't have to wait a long time.
Yeah, it sounds like they were able to find one right away.
And is Simon
it's very
excited about this taxi ride?
Of course he
Good, yeah,
is.
yeah.
He doesn't like the rain either, so
Yeah.
he wants to get out of it as soon as possible. So he says, good idea. And they get into a taxi. So the taxi stops for them, they get in the car, and now they're free to keep talking without worrying about the rain.
Right. Well, when they're in the taxi, this sort of brings Simon's mind, his thinking, back to this idea of tips. And so that's why he says in the UK, we tip cab drivers as well. This is
okay.
a different situation from the restaurant, but similar in that in both places in the UK, you give extra money or you tip these people. In one case, it's the server, the waiter or waitress. In the other case, it's the cab driver. Notice he uses this word cab instead of taxi. A taxi and a cab, they're exactly the same. It's a car that you hire and rent for a short distance, for traveling a short distance in a city, and usually you pay by time or by how far you go. So cab, taxi, but the person doing the work, sitting there with the wheel in front of the car, telling it where to go, that will always be called the driver. Now, a driver, it's a noun, of course, it's a person doing a job, a driver. D-R-I-V-E-R is how we spell the word driver. Now, as I said, a driver is someone who is in charge of a vehicle. They're telling the vehicle where to go, controlling the speed when it stops, if it goes left, right, all that kind of thing. But you know, with a lot of these different machines that move, we do have different terms. Basically, a driver will only be in charge of something with 4 or more wheels, all right? So if it's a bicycle or motorcycle, we don't usually use the term driver. And if it's something different, like a train or a boat or an airplane, we definitely don't use the word driver. There are special terms for those. But if it's a car, a bus, a taxi, a truck, a van, something like that, driver is perfectly good. It could be someone who does it as a job, or if it's your mom or dad and they're sitting there and they're the one in charge of the car, they are the driver right now. They're just doing it. It's not necessarily their job. For example, Daniel works for Taipei City as a bus driver. Daniel works for Taipei City as a bus driver, so he probably drives a bus 5 or 6 days a week. That's his job. And so Simon was saying how they tip cab drivers or taxi drivers in the UK.
That's right.
Now Lucia, right, she's from Canada, a different country, so what about there? Do they do the same thing?
Right, well, at least she spent some time in Canada, and she says, I did that in Canada too.
Oh, so tipping a taxi driver is common in Canada as well.
Yeah, I think wherever you might tip a server, you'd probably also tip a cab driver, is how it seems like. So yeah, sounds like tipping is a very common thing in many different ways.
All right, and this brings Simon back to a kind of embarrassing situation that happened to him before, probably again back in the UK. He says, a few times I didn't have enough cash to tip my driver. Ooh, that can be embarrassing. So that doesn't mean that he didn't have enough to pay for the taxi. He did, but he didn't have the extra amount that he wanted to give to the driver. It's kind of okay, but it's not polite.
I think the driver would probably be a little bit mad.
A little bit disappointed in you, for sure. But sometimes it is true. Sometimes we end up trying to buy something, but we discover we don't have enough cash. When we use this word enough, we're basically talking about an amount that we need to be successful. Okay, you can have more than that, great, now you have no problem. But if you have less than that, if you have not enough, then it's not really gonna work. If you have enough time to make it to your train, great. You will be able to get on the train before it leaves. If you don't have enough time, you have to start moving faster, or you could miss the train.
That's right. So you make sure that you have enough money when you need to go tip somebody.
Definitely.
So Simon's remembering this time when this happened. It probably in the UK, Simon remembers being in a taxi and not having enough money. So he can pay for his cab drive, but he can't pay the tip. The taxi driver looks a little angry because he's probably expecting a tip. Most people probably tip him. And Simon says, "Sorry, mate, I don't have enough for a tip." So why does he say mate here? Well, mate, he probably said it to make the cab driver a little bit less angry because mate is a friendly way to call somebody in the UK. It's kind of like the word friend. You can say, Mike is my mate. Yeah. If you want to say somebody's your friend, you say that you're mate. And especially in England, they do this. But also in Australia and New Zealand, they also call people mate. Yeah. And enough, we see it here again, but here we see it without a noun. So you can also say, I don't have enough. Just enough.
So he's just trying to be friendly with the taxi driver as he gives him bad news. If it was Canada, I might say, sorry, man. Sorry, dude. Sorry, bro.
Sorry, bro.
Something like that. But basically, you can say it to people who aren't your friend, but you're just sort of addressing them in a friendly, casual kind of way. All right, anyway, so he stops thinking about that embarrassing situation, but Lucia, after hearing it, she says, how embarrassing. It is embarrassing when you find you don't have enough money when it's time to pay. Something that's embarrassing is something that makes you feel sort of shy and ashamed and like everyone's looking at you like you did something wrong. You didn't do something really terribly wrong, but you did something that other people are maybe going to laugh at you a little bit about. You know, you walk into school and you're a room and you realize your zipper on your pants is down. Excuse me. Or you've been talking to someone and you realize you have food on your face that you didn't notice for 20 minutes. You're like, oh my gosh, I had food on my face. I was talking to that person. Your face turns red. You kind of want to hide or run away or disappear.
Or even worse, you forgot their name when you called them the wrong one.
Oh, that's again why you use mate or dude. Hey, dude.
Hey, you.
Otherwise, if you say, hey, I met you many times and I don't remember your name, that could be embarrassing. All right, so the situation, what happened is embarrassing. Your feeling is embarrassed with an ED on the end. Not good, but it happens to everyone.
Yeah, and so, I mean, Lucia says, how embarrassing, and Simon says, tell me about it.
Yeah.
Now, he doesn't really mean he wants her to tell him about how embarrassing he was or how embarrassed he should be. When you say, tell me about it, it's a phrase that you use to strongly agree with somebody. So you can also say something like, you can say that again. They shouldn't actually say it again. If you hear somebody say, tell me about it, or you can say that again, don't actually do either of those things. It's just their way of agreeing with you very strongly.
If they have the same feeling as you and they want to let you know. All right, so the next thing we see is that the taxi, this is the one that they're in here in Taipei in the rainstorm. The taxi arrives at their home. Simon pays the driver, no tip, and they get out. So they finished with their taxi ride. Now, this brings Lucia sort of back to thinking about being in Canada and tipping people. She says, when I was in Canada, I really hated tipping at first. So she was new to Canada. She kind of had to learn this whole culture that they're talking about. So yeah, when we're giving someone a tip, that whole action or that whole culture, we can call it tipping, right? So we talk about tipping culture. And when you're doing it, you are tipping someone. You are giving them a tip.
Right, and so tipping culture is much more important in some places than others.
It is,
yeah. And for Lucia, she's coming from a country where tipping culture is not very important, coming to one where it is very important. And she says, I always forgot. And it was hard to work out the right amount. That is true. 15% is not really an easy number
to... weird number.
Yeah. 20%, that's why I do 20%, because it's easier to calculate.
Oh, that's a
Take
good
off
idea.
a 0 times 2.
Okay.
Yep. All right. So now they are done with their cab ride, they've gotten out, they paid, they walk into their apartment. So they're out of the rain, that's good. And what she's saying here with work out, like it's hard to work out a tip, it means doing the math to figure out the right number. And what does she have to work out? She has to work out the amount. That is our next word power word. It is a noun, amount spelled A-M-O-U-N-T, amount. Okay, so when we talk about something, an amount of something, it means it's answering the question, how much of it is there? We use amount with no count nouns or uncountable nouns. For example, you could say an amount of water because we cannot count water, so we will use amount of it. Or if you say an amount of money, for example, or an amount of time. That's a very common use of the word amount. However, if you need to use something like this with a countable noun, like fingers or paper or something like that, you would say a number of. I have a number of fingers on my hands, 10 to be precise. So here's an example of amount. Ned can only spend a small amount of money on lunch today. Ned can only spend a small amount of money on lunch today.
And then she adds, then I started paying with my card.
Oh, that's smart.
That's another way to do things. Yeah, definitely. If you start to do something, you begin. And I will begin to explain this by spelling the word start, S-T-A-R-T. This is a verb, so let's start. So start is very simply when an action first takes place. Before that, you weren't doing something, then you start, and now you are doing something, all right? So if you sit down and you open a book, now you have started to read that book. You can also start things like say, we will start the movie after dinner. We will start watching the movie after dinner, or we will start the movie. If you're playing a basketball game, how does the game start? Well, it starts by the referee throwing the ball up in the air. The clock begins to count away. The game has started. Before that, there was no game. Now there is a game. And of course, the opposite of start would be at the end, the game will finish or will end. But to start is to begin that activity or that action. For example, Bob started learning Chinese in high school. Bob started learning Chinese in high school. In junior high, he wasn't learning it at that time. So Lucia was saying that for her, tipping got easier in Canada when she started using her card. Now, how is that different from using just cash money, paper money?
That's a good question, because for me, I don't remember it being easier with a card, but maybe for some people it is. And she says this is why. The card machines calculate the tip for you.
They have a button that says 10, 15, 20.
Okay.
So you just press the button and
That
it does
makes
the
a lot of
math.
sense.
So smart.
Very smart, yeah. So when we say calculate, well, what does this calculate mean? It is a fancy little verb which means do a math problem. And it gives you a result. So like if you have a machine that can calculate numbers, you want to tip 15%, you press the 15% button and it will go in the computer and give you the amount plus 15% automatically. You can also calculate numbers in your head, like people can calculate or computers can calculate, or you can do it on paper. And we have a machine called a calculator. Yeah.
All right, so there you go. So Simon, he says, I'll be honest, I don't miss tipping, all right? He lives in Taiwan now. He's not in the UK. People here in Taiwan don't tip. So Simon's kind of, well, he's telling the truth here. That's why he says, I'll be honest, I don't miss tipping. In Taiwan, they don't tip. I'm happy with that. I don't want to go back to the UK where tipping adds extra money to everything. Now he says, I'll be honest. Of course, well, Lucia's his friend, so he's not going to lie to her. And he's just talking about his feelings about tipping, so it's not something he needs to lie about. Why does he say, I'll be honest? Because we're kind of saying something that's a little bit embarrassing, that, maybe we're not proud of. I love not paying extra money to servers. Let them suffer. No, it's nothing like that. It's just sort of like, I kind of like this country a little bit more than my home country in this way, all right? So that's why he uses the expression, I'll be honest. But generally, being honest means telling the truth, all right? This is a word, it's an adjective spelled H-O-N-E-S-T. The word is honest. And before you all look at me that way, no, I was being honest when I spelt that word. There is an H at the beginning, but you do not say honest. It's honest, all right? So you do kind of skip the H. Honest. I'm telling the truth. But yes, when you are an honest person or being honest, you are telling the truth. You are not lying. You are telling the facts exactly as they are, not kind of making up a story out of your imagination to, protect yourself or to stay out of trouble or something like that. To be honest is to tell the truth. Lucy, for example, Lucy is an honest person. She never lies. Lucy is an honest person. She never lies.
All right, so sounds like you're being pretty honest about that.
I definitely would never lie about that, no.
So let's hope that we are all being honest with each other about tipping as well. Well, I'll be honest, I don't really miss it either. So let's go to our magic box right now because we are done with our article for today. And when we're done with that, we'll be right back with you for review time.
Magic Box 找亮点。
嗨，大家好，我是 Peggy。前几天呢，我的好朋友跟我大吐苦水，他说这次考试超难，非常难，难到爆。他考得惨兮兮，我也觉得其实蛮难的，就跟他说 ，Tell me about it. The teachers must be crazy. 就是说啊，老师一定是疯了才出这么难。但是我的朋友却像是鬼打墙一般，又说了一遍，说：“哎呦，考试好难哦！”我想说他已经讲过一次了，为什么要讲一次？最后经过一番鸡同鸭讲，终于发现哦，原来他是听不懂我刚刚说的 "Tell me about it" 是什么意思，以为我没听清楚，叫他再说一遍啦。哎呀，说到这个 "Tell me about it"， 它是一个很口语的用法，就是说还用说吗？就是说啊，是来认同别人的意思。比如有人跟你说，啊，今天好热哦 ，It's so hot today， 你就可以回答 Tell me about it, I'm melting， 就是说啊，我都要融化了。除了 Tell me about it 以外呢，英文口语上还有一些表达赞同的用法，比如说 Exactly、Totally 都是没错，正是如此，是非常积极正面赞同别人的用法。或是呢，更口语一点的还有 You don't say。不过要注意这个句子哦 ，You don't say 跟 Tell me about it 一样，都是还用说吗的意思。可是，在使用的时候呢，要小心一点，因为你有时候语气要是讲的不对，就会变得有点嘲讽，变得比较像是在说啊，还用说吗？还要你说哦。比如说，我数学很烂，算术常常算错。那天跟我妹抱怨的时候，说啊，我数学好烂哦，然后我妹就说 You don't say, you still owe me $200.You don't say, you still owe me $200. 我妹说还用说吗？你根本就算不出来，你还欠我200块，你知不知道？原来我还欠他200块，我自己都不知道。看看我数学有多烂。最后再介绍一个口语上或者是网络上都很常看到的用法，就是 I know, right？ 就是对吧？我就说吧，就是啊的意思。在网络上跟人家聊天和留言，有时候还会看到人家简写成 IKR， 就是 I know right 前面三个字母缩在一起，合在一起。这其实是非常口语，甚至有一点点不正式的用法，比较是朋友之间聊天打屁的时候用的。比如说有一款游戏超好玩， The game you told me about last time was so much fun. 这时候你就可以说 I know, right? I stayed up all night playing it. 就是说吧，我昨天晚上玩到整晚都没睡。不要告诉别人哦。最后，假如你同学跟你分享说昨天晚上的球赛好好看 ，The game last night was so great. 你要赞同他说，就是说啊 ，James 的表现超棒。这个时候要怎么说呢？别走开，答案马上揭晓喽。The answer is, tell me about it. James was doing great. 你答对了吗？
Wait for it. It's review time. 复习时间到喽。
Okay, we are here for review time today.
Yes.
Yeah. And so today we're going to make a story with word power words.
Oh, are we?
Yes, we are. So
Okay.
let's see what we've got. We've got driver, amount, start,
Yep.
and honest.
Okay.
So how about I start?
All right.
Oh, well, I just did one. No, our story starts with a little lizard.
A little lizard. All right. This little lizard had a job. He was the driver of a bank truck.
Wow.
Yeah.
Huh.
He's a special lizard. He can drive a big truck that carries money from bank to bank.
Amazing.
Yeah.
That's a pretty special job.
It is a job.
I know that if you are a bank truck driver, you have to be a very honest person.
Absolutely.
So this is a very honest lizard.
It's a super honest lizard. And why does a lizard bank truck driver or any bank truck driver need to be honest? Because they carry large amounts of cash around with them.
Wow.
Yeah, that just means a lot of money.
So it means that if he ever let that cash get stolen, his job would be bye-bye.
He would be in big trouble.
He would
be
be
an unemployed lizard driver.
That's right.
That's the worst kind of lizard to be. So there you go, guys. The beginning of a very strange story. We don't know where it's going, but we do know we were successful in using all 4 word power words. Yay, us. High five.
right.
There we go. And that's it for today. We're done. So remember, if you leave Taiwan to go to another place, and this is a good tip, look up the tipping culture in the place you're going to avoid embarrassment and to avoid people saying, Taiwanese people don't know how to tip. Well, do some research and you'll find out that it's something that people do, and then you'll have another reason to be super happy when you come back here because we don't have to tip as much.
Yay!
Helps you save money. So we hope that's helped you guys, and we'll see you next time for more fun and fascinating articles. Until then, bye!
Bye!
Culture shock!
To tip or not to tip?
Simon and Lucia are leaving the restaurant. It starts raining heavily.
Oh no, it's raining.
Lucia looks around.
Let's take a taxi home. There's one there.
Good idea.
They get into a taxi.
In the UK, we tip cab drivers as well.
I did that in Canada too.
A few times, I didn't have enough cash to tip my driver.
Simon remembers being in a taxi and not having enough money. The taxi driver looks a little angry.
Sorry, mate. I don't have enough for a tip.
The memory ends.
How embarrassing.
Tell me about it.
When I was in Canada, I really hated tipping at first. I always forgot, and it was hard to work out the right amount. Then, I started paying with my card. The card machines calculate the tip for you.
I'll be honest, I don't miss tipping.
Word power!
Driver. Driver. Daniel works for Taipei City as a bus driver. Daniel works for Taipei City as a bus driver. Amount. Amount. Ned can only spend a small amount of money on lunch today. Ned can only spend a small amount of money on lunch today. Start. Start. Bob started learning Chinese in high school. Bob started learning Chinese in high school. Honest. Honest. Lucy is an honest person. She never lies. Lucy is an honest person. She never lies.
认识字汇
Cab. Embarrassing. Calculate.